Following that news conference, I had a chance to sit down with Michael Ignatieff for a one-on-one conversation. We discussed everything from the Liberal oceans policy he laid out today to calls for a Liberal merger with the NDP and his rejection of that to the HST. He even told us which team he thinks he's hoping is going to win the World Cup. We began today by discussing the Liberal foreign policy, which he laid out last week. Among other things, it calls for Canadian troops to remain in Afghanistan beyond the scheduled end of active service next year in a training capacity. I asked him if he thought the country would support that with yet another soldier killed in Afghanistan today.
You know, I don't think it's the casualties themselves. I think Canadians, we're a tough country, we're a proud country, we're fiercely proud of our military. I think the problem is futility. They wonder whether, we're achieving anything. And I think what we were trying to achieve when we started was get Afghanistan ready to defend itself. And that job is not finished. So I've said end of combat. No more combat.
You have rejected calls for a merger between the Liberals and the NDP and calls for something to be done from no lower a level within the party than Jean Chrétien. How long can you resist?
Look, this party is not for merging. I'm a liberal. I began working for this party when I was 17 years old. I knocked on doors for Mike Pearson, and then I worked for Mr. Trudeau. I think the first time I ever came out to Victoria was with Mr. Trudeau in 1968. So this is in my blood here. This is in my veins. We can work with other parties. I'm not like Mr. Harper. I can work with other parties. But I'm going to run in the next election in 308 ridings and give Canadians a Liberal alternative.
The polls suggest, and forgive me, that you have a likability issue with Canadians. On a personal level, that must hurt. For a guy who wants to be Prime Minister, it can be career-threatening. What do you do about that? How do you overcome that?
I talk to you. I talk to you for a start.
Why do you think Canadians feel that way? What is it?
Look, I shake every hand in the room. I get an incredibly warm reception from Canadians. When I'm taking off my shoe to go through the security thing and I'm talking to Canadians behind me in the line, they all say, hang in there. Don't get discouraged. We're with you. That's something that they don't tell you about. The press can be tough. The politicians can be tough. But I can honestly look you in the eye and tell you that the Canadian people are what keep me going. I've had an incredibly warm, good reaction. Even the people who don't vote for you say, hang in there, keep going, because they know this is a tough job, and they actually want politicians to do a good job and to succeed. So I feel that at my back.
Where are you on the HST?
My party voted for the HST legislation in Parliament. I won't conceal that from you. And we did so for a reason, which is that we've done sales tax harmonization deals with all kinds of provinces, with the Atlantic provinces. It was good for Atlantic Canada. We did one with Quebec. It was good for Quebec. We've done one with Ontario, and Ontario thinks it's going to...
And you kind of went both ways on Ontario, right?
No, we were clear on sales tax harmonization in all these places. So when BC comes to you and says, and the provincial premier says to you, this will create jobs, this will stimulate economic growth, a federal party that's a responsible party thinks, okay, if the province wants this, that's my vision of federalism. Let's try and make this thing work. But it's clear this has aroused immense resentment and resistance, not necessarily just the tax, but the way it was done. I don't want to intrude into provincial stuff, but that's part of what the problem is. So we are open to mitigation strategies. By that I mean, let's see if there's any way to make sure this doesn't clobber people who are most vulnerable.
As for the World Cup, Ignatieff told me he's predicting an Argentina-Brazil final, and he predicts Argentina will be crowned champion. I'll explain why that is in the full interview with the Liberal leader, which we'll bring you later this week on A News.